Hey guys, tonight we begin with something you probably never thought about while adjusting your thermostat or cracking open a cold soda on a summer day. But if you had woken up in ancient Persia around the year 500 BCE, your relationship with heat would have been a little different. In fact, it would have been personal. Because the sun here, it doesn't just shine, it wages psychological warfare. You wake up in a house built from thick, sun-dried mud brick. There's no breeze, no hum of a fan, no buttons to press. But somehow the air around you isn't oppressive, it's tolerable, maybe even comfortable. And that's not magic. That's engineering a kind of passive, ancient, quietly brilliant air conditioning system that worked without electricity, without noise, and without anyone in the ancient world even knowing what an HVAC technician was. You blink open your eyes to a room the colour of warm sand. There are no windows like you're used to, just narrow slits cut into the walls, angled away from the rising sun, allowing light to enter without the burning heat. You lie on a simple woven mat. It's not plush, but it's surprisingly cool to the touch. Above you, a gently curved ceiling encourages warm air to rise up and slip away through hidden vents. The air around you is still, but it feels fresh. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your location and what time it is where you are. I never get tired of seeing someone tuning in from Toronto at midnight, or someone in Singapore saying it's just after lunch. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly and rub the sleep from your eyes. Your feet touch the floor, which is hard-packed earth still holding on to the chill of the night before. You walk over to the corner of the room where a tall clay jug sits on a raised stone. It's wrapped in a damp cloth, and when you lift it to your lips, the water inside is cool. Not cold, not icy, but definitely cool. And in a climate like this, that's nothing short of a miracle. This isn't a luxury villa. This is a humble home, maybe 12 feet across, built for survival. And every feature of it, from the direction it faces to the materials in its walls, is designed with one goal: beat the heat without ever raising your voice about it. The sun is already crawling higher as you step outside into a narrow alley barely wide enough for two people to pass. But here's the genius: the walls are tall and tight, creating shade all through the day. These streets weren't laid out randomly. They were shaped like veins, carrying breeze and shadows into the very heart of the city. You pass a neighbour who's pouring rose water into a shallow stone basin, scattering a few flower petals in for good measure. The scent floats toward you, sweet, clean, and oddly cooling. The breeze picks it up, and for a second your brain forgets that it's over 100 degrees outside. Evaporation is doing the heavy lifting, and it's doing it beautifully. Persian cities like this one, precursors to places like Yazd, weren't just places to live. They were machines, passive machines designed by people who deeply understood the desert, the wind, and the way that mud could become armour. You're not walking through chaos. You're moving through ancient environmental logic. Historians mostly agree that these early Persian communities were among the first to master passive cooling in urban design. But there's still debate. Some scholars argue that these methods were borrowed from older Mesopotamian cities, or even influenced by Egyptian architectural tricks. Others insist that Persians developed their own unique solutions to the crushing heat. There are no clear blueprints, no detailed journals, just buildings, many of them still standing, and the lived experience of not baking alive every summer. And here's the quirky bit: some believe that ancient engineers were inspired by nature, not by gods or magic, but by watching desert animals, foxes burrowing in the shade, beetles catching dew lizards that moved in and out of cracks in the stone. Observation turned into imitation, and imitation turned into infrastructure. You walk down another alley and feel it, the temperature drops again. Not by much, just a degree or two. But it's enough to make your steps lighter. That's what Persian cooling is all about. Not blasting cold air, not freezing you, just gently shifting the odds in your favour, one smart design choice at a time. You stop at a stall where a young boy is slicing cucumbers and stuffing them with crushed mint and, believe it or not, shaved ice. Yes, ice. In a desert. And no, you're not hallucinating. The ancient Persians figured out how to store ice in the middle of summer, but we'll get to that in a later section. For now, just enjoy the crunch. The burst of cold. The way it quiets your rising body temperature like a whisper against the flames. You chew slowly, and everything seems manageable again. That's how they did it. Ancient Persians survived the heat, not with brute force, but with elegance. Your house isn't the only place pulling this off. The entire city is in on it. The walls, the streets, the water jugs, the courtyards, the timing of your errands, the fabric of your clothing. Everything conspires to keep you one step ahead of the heat. And still, even with all this, it's only morning. The real heat hasn't even started yet. So let's keep moving, there's a lot more to discover. And you're going to need all the breeze you can get. You step out of the alleyway and instantly regret it. The sun greets you like a personal vendetta pouring down in waves so hot it feels like the sky's trying to bake you into a very confused flatbread. The transition from shade to sunlight is so dramatic it's like stepping into another universe. One where the only currency is sweat and you're about to go bankrupt. Out here under the open sky you feel the full force of ancient Persian summer. There are no clouds, no mercy, and certainly no sunscreen. The sun above the Persian plateau doesn't just shine, it dominates. And if you're not careful, it will turn your bones into kindling by noon. You shield your eyes with a raised arm and glance around. The buildings stretch like quiet guardians, tall adobe structures with no glass, no gleaming tiles, just sand-coloured walls thick enough to block an argument. These aren't homes, they're climate bunkers, engineered with precision, layered with purpose. Designed by people who knew the sun wasn't a seasonal inconvenience, it was a permanent celestial bully. The streets themselves curve and wind like lazy rivers. There's no straight path unless it's absolutely necessary. That's not poor planning, it's climate strategy. Curving alleys break up airflow, diffuse sunlight, and keep temperatures manageable. Everything here is a counterattack against heat. You move slowly, deliberately. No one hurries in this sun. Hurrying is for fools and people who enjoy heat stroke. You pass a group of children huddled around a patch of shade cast by a single fig tree. They aren't running, they're sitting, whispering, trading walnuts or marbles, because playtime happens under cover, or it doesn't happen at all. You're dressed properly at least. A light robe of breathable cotton drapes across your shoulders, cinched with a simple rope. Beneath it, a tunic hangs loose enough to let air flow like a second skin. The colours are muted pale cream, soft beige, dusty blue. Not just fashion, function. Light colours reflect the sun. Dark ones absorb it. Everyone knows this. Even the toddlers. A merchant walks past balancing 2 clay jars on a wooden pole across his shoulders. The jars are damp on the outside intentionally. The moisture slowly evaporates, cooling the contents inside. Ancient desert refrigeration, no wires needed. He nods as he passes, barely sweating. You, on the other hand, feel like a slow-cooked stew. You duck into the shallow entry of a clothes shop, grateful for the sliver of shade. And there you wait, just long enough to catch your breath, just long enough for the wave of heat to ebb. Because in Persia, surviving summer is a rhythm. Exert, pause, exert, pause. Too much too fast and you'll end up face down in a street made of sun. You press your hand to the wall beside you. It's not cold, but it's cooler than the air. These bricks are thick sometimes, 2 or 3 feet thick, baked in sun laid by hand and perfectly tuned to trap the chill of night. That thermal inertia means the heat takes hours to penetrate, and by the time it does, the sun's already on its way down. It's like living inside a giant clay battery slowly discharging comfort across the day. Historians largely agree that the Persians weren't just good at enduring heat, they were revolutionary in how they manipulated their environment. Cities like Susa and later Yazd were famous for their layout homes clustered together, for mutual shade alleys aligned to catch prevailing winds, water channels snaking beneath the surface to carry coolness from distant springs. But of course, scholars still argue about the specifics. Some believe the knowledge was inherited from Mesopotamia, refined over centuries of empire building. Others think it was homegrown innovation developed in response to the brutal demands of the Iranian plateau. A few even point to cross-cultural exchanges with India or Egypt, noting architectural similarities and shared hydrological techniques. The truth? Probably a bit of everything. Trade carried goods, but heat carried wisdom. One lesser-known theory, a bit quirky, suggests that Persian builders may have drawn inspiration from burrowing animals. Desert foxes, jerboas and lizards often dig homes in specific shapes and angles, minimizing sun exposure while maximizing airflow. It's speculative, sure. But if you're sweating in an alley staring at a vent carved with mathematical elegance, it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like biomimicry. You wipe your brow and keep moving, slowly. You've got a destination now, a shaded courtyard rumoured to have the best mulberry sherbet in town, but getting there means crossing a sun-blasted square. The plaza is empty, save for a few brave souls. One woman in a wide linen hood walks with a steady rhythm, balancing a basket of figs on her head like it's part of her skeleton. Her shadow trails behind her like a faint echo. You take a breath, brace yourself and step out. Instant regret. The air is still, not a breeze in sight. The ground radiates heat like a grudge. Even your eyelashes feel warm. You power walk Persian style, which means about half your usual pace. It's not dignified, but neither is spontaneous combustion. Finally, blessedly, you slip into the shade of the next alley, and the difference is instant. Cooler air, quieter space, less glare. It's like crossing a boundary between worlds. And here, tucked into the corner of a shaded passage, is the courtyard you've been seeking. You step inside and everything changes. The walls are high. Vines climb along clay trellises. A tiny fountain trickles in the centre, surrounded by low benches and citrus trees. The air smells faintly of mint and orange blossom. You sit. You breathe. You survive. A boy approaches with a clay cup half filled with iced mulberry syrup and chilled water. You sip. It's sweet, tart, cold. The ice comes from underground, stored in shadowy chambers you'll explore later. For now it's enough to just sit here, to feel the cool stone beneath you, to hear the gurgle of water, to remember that even in a place designed by heat, humans found ways to push back. Because this moment of quiet, of shade, of simple relief didn't happen by accident. It happened because someone thought long and hard about airflow, sunlight angles, building materials and human comfort. It happened because survival here had to be designed. So you lean back, let your shoulders drop, and understand that in ancient Persia the heat didn't just shape the land, it shaped civilization. You finish the last drop of mulberry sherbet, wipe your mouth with your sleeve and let the clay cup rest against the cool stone bench. Around you the courtyard hums with quiet life, murmured conversations, the faint rustle of vine leaves, the soft splash of water as someone dips a hand into the fountain. The air moves in slow, deliberate currents as if the space itself is breathing, and in a way it is. This house, like many others in ancient Persia, isn't just a home. It's a machine built to defeat the sun with silence, mud and airflow. And at the heart of that machine is the architecture, walls, floors, ceilings, passageways, all designed with the weather in mind. You walk back inside through a narrow arched doorway, and you immediately notice it again, that subtle difference. Inside is cooler than outside. Not icy, not even chilly, but comfortable. And the longer you stand there, the more you realise the coolness isn't fading. It's being maintained, held in place, like the house knows how to store it. These secret mud bricks, specifically sun-dried clay bricks mixed with straw, stacked thick and wide. They absorb the chill of the night, then release it slowly through the day. It's not fast, it's not flashy, but it works. Like a camel's hump, the walls are storing survival. You press your palm to one. It's warm, but not scorching. The wall is a buffer between you and the furnace outside, and the materials local, cheap, renewable, straw mud time. That's all it took. And once built, these homes could last for centuries if cared for. Historians often note that this style of building was common across arid regions from Morocco to Western China. But in Persia, it was elevated, made elegant. Here building wasn't just utility, it was artistry. The curves of the ceilings weren't just pretty, they directed air. The tiles on the floor weren't just decorative, they stayed cool underfoot long after noon. And then there's the placement. Every wall, every arch, every threshold is arranged with precision. The long walls face north-south, minimising exposure. The courtyards are sunken, shaded by tall plants or canvas awnings. Even the smallest detail, the placement of a vent, the slope of a ceiling feeds into the grand mission of making summer survivable. One fringe theory suggests that Persian architects developed these techniques by studying termite mounds. Yes, termites. These tiny insects build towering clay homes with built-in airflow systems. Vertical shafts draw hot air out while cooler air is pulled in from lower levels. Sound familiar. While no historical text confirms the Persians were insect-inspired, the parallels are compelling. Nature, after all, has been engineering far longer than humans have. You step deeper into the house, passing through an inner corridor where the light dims. It's silent here, padded with shadow. You run your fingers along a carved plaster wall. The surface is smooth, cool, and as you walk, you realise this house is guiding you, directing your steps away from the heat toward its own heart. And that heart, the sardab, a subterranean chamber built for one thing, only staying cold. You descend a few steps and suddenly the temperature drops. Just a few degrees, but enough to raise the tiny hairs on your arms. Down here the air is dense still and oddly refreshing. Your breathing slows. The floor beneath your sandals is damp stone. No sunlight reaches this far. This basement space isn't used for storage, it's for resting, escaping, sometimes even sleeping during the worst of summer. Thick walls, lack of windows, and proximity to the earth keep it cool. And sometimes these chambers are linked to even more advanced systems, qanats. A qanat is an underground water channel, an engineering marvel that carries cool water from distant mountains or aquifers into the heart of the city without exposing it to the sun. These tunnels slope gently, allowing gravity to do the work. No pumps, no engines. Just mathematics and faith in the power of physics. You crouch beside a small opening in the wall, where you can hear it, the faint trickle of moving water. It's below you somewhere, invisible but ever present. That water cools the air around it, and when channeled through vents called badgear or windcatchers, it can bring relief to entire homes. Not every house has access to a qanat, of course. They're expensive, time-consuming and hard to maintain, but in wealthier districts they're the silent heroes of daily life. You climb back up from the sardab blinking as the daylight returns, and now you see the house differently. It's not just walls and doors, it's a living system. It moves air, it stores cold, it protects, all without making a sound. Some historians argue that this passive cooling system predates similar Roman efforts by centuries. Others push back, saying that Roman aqueducts and bathhouses were more advanced in scale. But there's little disagreement that Persia's combination of qanats, mud brick and airflow design was uniquely adapted to the demands of the desert. And while the Romans built grand monuments to empire, the Persians quietly mastered comfort. You may not see their cooling systems on postcards, but if you lived here, you'd feel them in your bones. You step into another room, a kitchen this time, though no food is cooking. It's early still. The hearth is cold. Clay jars line the shelves. Some are sealed with wax, others with damp cloth. Each one stores water grain dates or pickled herbs. You lean in and notice how many are set near small floor vents. They're not just stored, they're cooled. It's all so intentional, so clever, so quiet. You lean back against the doorway and take a moment, not just to rest, but to appreciate. In a world without fans, electricity or freon, the ancient Persians created homes that didn't fight the heat. They danced with it, used it, respected it. And here you are, barely breaking a sweat, still alive, still upright, still breathing in cool, still air that feels like a whisper in the desert. You haven't even seen the windcatcher yet. You step outside again, moving slowly, hugging the shade like it owes you money. The wind has gone still for now, which is bad news, but not for long, because just ahead of you, rising like a tower pulled straight from a dream of breeze and silence, is the windcatcher. You stare up at it. Tall, narrow, symmetrical. A strange chimney-looking structure poking high above the rooftops. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. But this isn't just decoration. This is a badger, a windcatcher, one of the most brilliant pieces of passive cooling technology the ancient world ever invented, and it's about to become your best friend. As you walk closer, the air begins to shift. You don't see the wind, but you feel it. A whisper threading its way down from the sky, captured and redirected by walls that know exactly what they're doing. You step under the arch of a doorway into the main hall of a well-built home, and it hits you cool air sliding across your face like the world's softest sigh. You've entered a space designed to outwit the desert. Above you unseen, the badger is working hard, or rather not working at all, and still getting everything done. It's a structure with no moving parts, no electricity, no fans, and yet it channels wind like a conductor leading an orchestra. The breeze is caught at the top of the tower, then guided down vertical shafts into the rooms below. Meanwhile, hot air is pushed up and out, creating a circulation loop that keeps you from melting. And here's the twist: it works even when there's no wind. In still air, the sun heats the top of the windcatcher, creating a pressure differential that pulls cooler air up from the bottom. It's like nature's own vacuum system, powered by sunlight, triggered by design, and somehow older than your great-great-grandparents' idea of insulation. You sit down on a wide stone bench near the wall, where a vent from the badger blows a faint dry breeze across your arms. It's not cold, but it's enough. Enough to stop the sweat. Enough to bring your heartbeat down. Enough to make you wonder why we ever bothered inventing air conditioners that rattle and hum when we had this kind of ancient serenity. Mainstream historians often credit windcatchers as the crown jewel of Persian environmental engineering. Cities like Yazd became famous for their skylines dotted with these quiet towers, each one fine-tuned to the direction of the prevailing winds. Some homes had one. Wealthier estates had 4, each pointed to a different compass direction, ready to catch even the slightest whisper of air. But there's debate as always. Some scholars argue the earliest versions of badgers appeared in Egypt first. Others insist it was a distinctly Persian innovation. The truth: like most ancient technologies, it probably evolved in parallel different cultures, solving the same problem in different but equally brilliant ways. One thing's for sure, the Persians made it beautiful. The towers weren't just functional, they were elegant. Arches carved into the plaster geometric patterns, tracing their height tiles, glittering like sunlit dragonfly wings. Some even had damp cloths hanging inside the vents to cool the air further through evaporation. And yes, it worked. In the middle of the desert, in a home with no artificial cooling, the interior temperature could be 10 to 15 degrees cooler than outside, in some cases even more. You tilt your head back and imagine the path of the wind, how it enters through those upper slats, splits down the hollow walls, flows past the ceiling arches and reaches you with perfect aim. It's not a gust, it's not a blast, it's a breeze. Quiet, dignified, steady. You're not alone in appreciating this ancient genius. Modern architects studying sustainable design have circled back to the windcatcher like it's a holy grail of low-energy cooling. Versions of it appear in new eco-buildings, and in the city of Yazd, where they still stand after centuries, badgirs continue to whisper air through kitchens and courtyards, just as they always have. But the beauty of it isn't just the structure, it's the system. The badgir often works in tandem with other features, the qanat, the sardab, the mud brick walls, the shaded courtyards. This isn't one invention, it's a symphony. Each part modest on its own, but together they create an environment where even in 110-degree heat, you're not drowning in sweat. You're sipping tea, calm, still, breathing air that's been folded and filtered through stone. And here's something quirky for you. Some ancient homes even used windcatchers to cool their food. A vent would lead into an underground chamber where jars of milk, yogurt and herbs were stored. Not quite a refrigerator, but not far off either. Just another way the Persians used air like a tool instead of just a burden. You run your hand along the base of the interior vent. The air emerging from it has passed through a maze of plaster, and brick, turned corners gained speed and shed heat. And now it's yours, free, gentle, kind. You lie back on a cushion, the kind that cradles you just enough. You hear the trickle of a nearby fountain, smell a hint of cardamom in the air. The windcatcher hums in its silence like a monument to patience. And in this moment, you don't care who invented it first. You're just thankful someone did. You leave the soft hum of the windcatcher behind and follow a narrow passage downward drawn by the sudden change in the air. It's subtle at first, just a cool draft curling along your ankles, moving with purpose, as if beckoning you towards something ancient and secret. You step carefully, your sandals clicking against stone stairs, each one slightly worn from generations of quiet feet. The light dims. You descend slowly into a place few would guess exists in a desert, and then it opens before you, a dome of earth and brick, vast and silent, hollow as a whisper. You've entered a yakchal, an ancient Persian ice pit, a natural refrigerator built long before anyone thought to plug something into a wall, and here, in the heart of blistering heat, you feel cold air on your skin. Yes, cold, not cool. Cold, in the middle of the Iranian plateau, without electricity, without machinery, just mud geometry and genius. You stand still, let it wash over you. The dome towers overhead, thick, smooth, coated in a special blend of clay lime sand and goat hair. The result is a surface that breathes just enough to regulate the moisture and keep the interior dry, but strong enough to withstand the searing summer sun outside. The structure insulates the interior so well that even when the world above melts into fire, this chamber stays chilled. You step farther inside and the temperature drops another degree. Your shoulders relax. Your breath slows. It feels like walking into memory. At the centre is the pit itself, a large stone-lined basin dug deep into the earth, covered for now. But beneath it lies what you're here to see: ice. Real ice. Harvested during winter months and stored with straw, clay and patience. Packed tightly to minimise melting. Tucked away for months so that it could serve one vital role: survival. In some places, ice was brought down from distant mountains. In others, the yakchal itself produced it. On freezing winter nights, shallow pools of water were exposed to the sky and allowed to freeze. Then by morning, the thin ice layers were broken, collected and packed down in this underground vault. Layer after layer after layer, straw in between, like building a cake of survival, one cold tier at a time. You run your hand along the wall. It's dry, cool, faintly powdery. The dome shape isn't just aesthetic, it minimises surface area exposed to the sun and encourages warm air to rise away from the stored goods. At the top is a ventilation shaft. Heat escapes, coolness settles. Historians agree that the Yakchal is one of ancient Persia's greatest architectural achievements. Some even call it the world's first true refrigerator. But as always, debates bubble beneath the surface. Did the idea evolve entirely in Persia, or did influences come from Mesopotamian cooling structures or Egyptian granaries? There's evidence but not certainty. Some argue it was a response to empire-building logistics. After all, storing ice made it easier to supply garrisons, treat injuries, and keep food fresh across vast distances. Others say it was simply human creativity meeting an unforgiving climate head-on. And then there's the quirky theory, less academic, more poetic, that Yakchals were inspired by, watching how the desert itself stored coolness underground. That somewhere some farmer or builder stood barefoot on a patch of sand in the early morning and thought, "It's cold down here," and decided to dig deeper. Whatever the origin, the results are undeniable. These structures allowed people not just to live, but to thrive in conditions that would otherwise scorch, crops rot meat, and turn every summer into a slow, thirsty march toward exhaustion. You sit on a low stone ledge carved into the inner wall. Around you, shadows drape the curves of the dome like folded linen. It's peaceful here, monastic almost. And in ancient times, it wasn't just food and ice that found refuge here. People did too. During the worst heat waves, when even the courtyards boiled and the air shimmered like fire, families would come down into these chambers to nap, to wait out the hottest part of the day, to talk in hushed voices and drink water that didn't taste like the sun. In some Yakchals there were even smaller side rooms, niches for storing pickled vegetables, dried herbs, delicate sweets that would melt above ground. You imagine jars of yogurt, blocks of cheese, maybe even a cool jar of rosewater waiting patiently for the evening meal. In a land of scarcity, this was luxury. Not wealth in gold, but in degrees. You lean back, head resting against the curved wall, and let your eyes trace the lines of the dome. Everything was calculated, everything deliberate. The thickness of the walls, the slope of the vents, the depth of the pit, all tuned to a single purpose: keep the cold in, keep the heat out. And it worked. Not by accident, not by guesswork, but by knowledge passed down through generations of builders, thinkers, and quietly brilliant engineers who understood their environment so deeply they didn't just survive it, they shaped it. You rise slowly and make your way back toward the stairs. At the base you pause, turn around, take one last look. This place feels like a miracle, but it isn't one. It's a product of patience, of trial and error, of listening to the land instead of trying to conquer it. You climb back into daylight and blink as the sun greets you again, unapologetic and blinding. But something's changed. You're carrying the coolness with you now, not just in your body, but in your memory. The knowledge that below the dust and heat and endless blue sky, someone thought to carve a pocket of winter. And tomorrow, when the sun rises again, and it will hot and merciless, you'll know where to go. Because you've seen the heart of ancient Persian air conditioning, and it's colder than anything a modern vent could ever dream of. You leave the cold silence of the Yakchal behind, stepping cautiously into the daylight once more. The sun hits you like an ambush, hot, dry and absolute. You squint against the brightness, the sudden shift from chilled stone to sunlit air making your skin prickle. But now that you've felt what the Persians were hiding underground, your eyes begin noticing something new. They weren't just cooling their food and drinks, they were cooling everything, and they were doing it with airflow. You duck through a low doorway back into the main house. This time you see it more clearly. The layout isn't random. The building is built around an interior courtyard with walls that thicken toward the outside, almost like a protective shell. The rooms open inward, not out. It's a fortress not against enemies but against climate, and the air, it's moving. You hadn't noticed it before. It's not blowing or rushing but flowing subtly, gently, like a slow river of silence. You turn a corner and step into a wide room known as a talar, a long rectangular space used for sitting, dining or resting during the heat of the day. The architecture here is designed with one single objective to make you forget the sun exists. Light filters in from high-up wooden slats or geometric cutouts, carefully angled to avoid direct glare. Shadows stretch across the tiled floor in intricate patterns, constantly shifting with the angle of the sun like the room is breathing. In the centre is a shallow water feature house, a square or round basin filled with still water. It's only a foot deep, rimmed with soft polished stone, and the surface barely moves except when stirred by wind. You sit beside it. The air above it is cooler, not dramatically, but noticeably. Enough to remind you of where you've just been. This is evaporative cooling in action. Ancient air conditioning, no plug required. You dip your fingers into the water. It's not ice cold, but it carries the memory of shade. The water wasn't chilled in a fridge. It was cooled by its placement, kept out of direct sun, shaded by overhanging ledges, and slowly giving off its coolness to the air above. Evaporation pulls heat from the surface. The more surface area exposed to air, the greater the cooling. The Persians knew this instinctively. The house isn't just beautiful, it's functional. A design element that makes the air more bearable, the space more serene, and your body a little less desperate for shade. You sit still, eyes closed, feeling the quiet press of the room. Your breath evens out. The stillness isn't empty, it's intentional. Every surface has a job. Every corner plays its part. And now you see how the different pieces work together. The thick adobe walls keep the sun out. The high ceilings allow warm air to rise. The lattice work at the top lets that hot air escape. And the water pool cools what remains. It's an ecosystem of architecture. And below your feet, maybe you didn't notice it before, there are vents. Small, unobtrusive openings along the floor's edge. These connect to underground tunnels, sometimes natural, sometimes man-made, that link with qanats or other subterranean water channels. These tunnels, known as kariz or qanat shafts, draw cool air in. As hot air rises through the windcatcher, cooler air from underground is pulled in to replace it, flowing along the base of the walls and rising as it warms. It's a full-loop cooling system. No switches, no maintenance, just centuries of refinement. Modern engineers still study this. In fact, some green buildings today use versions of this airflow pattern, stack ventilation, thermal mass, passive cooling. They think it's a new idea. The Persians did it in sandals and turbans. You lie back on a simple cushion near the house, letting your body go slack. The stone beneath your back is warm where the sun touched it earlier, but just past the heat there's a layer of retained night cool. You can still feel it. The stone remembers. Historians often argue over how widespread these systems were. Some say only the rich had homes this complex. Others insist even modest homes had at least a basic version. Thick walls, smart alignment, some method of air movement. Archaeological evidence supports both. What's clear is that Persian builders from the Achaemenids through the Safavids and beyond were obsessed with airflow, and for good reason. Heat wasn't just inconvenient, it was existential. It shaped labour, food time, and even religion. Everything was arranged around it. Here's a detail most people miss: time of day. In Persian cities, most public activity happened early in the morning, and again at dusk. Midday was reserved for stillness, for water, for silence, for rooms like this. The architecture didn't just cool your body, it cooled your schedule. And then there's the sound, the quiet trickle of water, the distant echo of footsteps on stone. the chirp of a bird outside the lattice. These weren't just background noise, they were chosen, encouraged. A well-cooled space isn't loud, it's slow, and everything about it tells your body to slow down too. You glance up. The sunlight above the courtyard is fierce now, almost vertical. You know what's happening out there, shimmering streets, white-hot clay sandals too warm to stand still in. But inside you could read a scroll, sip a mint drink, or fall asleep mid-sentence. One lesser-known technique, you spot damp cloths hung across doorways or windows. A trick of the poorer homes. Just a strip of linen dipped in water hung in the path of the breeze. As the wind moves through, it evaporates the water and cools the air passing into the room. Simple, cheap, effective. Another quiet nod to the culture's unwillingness to surrender to heat. And yet it never feels over-engineered. It never feels forced. You could live here. You already are. And when the sun finally begins to sink again and the courtyards come back to life with footsteps and food and laughter, you'll emerge cooler, calmer, and maybe just a little bit in awe of a civilization that beat the desert at its own game, not with force, but with flow. By now your body understands the rhythm of ancient Persia. Mornings are for movement, afternoons are for stillness, and in between the heat isn't something to conquer, it's something to sidestep with grace. So as you stretch out beneath the latticework ceiling of the Taylor eyes, half close the air thick with evaporated mint and stone-cool silence, you realise you're not done learning. Because Persian climate control didn't stop at architecture. It extended to every aspect of life. Clothing, customs, daily rituals. Even how people ate, worked and slept was shaped by the understanding that the sun wasn't just part of life, it was the boss. You stand slowly and step into the central courtyard again. It's still hot, but your eyes have adjusted. Your body too. The air feels less like punishment now, more like background music you've grown used to. In the centre of the yard, an elderly man sits cross-legged under a grapevine trellis, weaving a basket in the shade. He's not in a rush. No one is. He gestures toward your robe, something you barely thought about before. It's a long tunic, loosely belted, made of soft cotton, and you've realised something funny: you're sweating less now. Not because the heat's gone, but because your clothes are doing exactly what they're supposed to. Persian clothing in the heat was practical artistry. Layers weren't avoided, they were used strategically. Loose-fitting outer robes created pockets of shade around the body. Air moved beneath the layers, evaporating sweat, cooling the skin, and blocking direct sunlight. Fabrics like cotton and linen were preferred for their breathability. Wool was reserved for cool desert nights, when temperatures could plunge without warning. You glance down at your sandals' simple leather soles with enough flexibility to tread lightly over stone, but enough distance from the ground to avoid burns. Some poorer folks went barefoot, but anyone who could afford it used something thin, wooden clogs, leather moccasins or soles made from palm fronds to give their feet a fighting chance. And when it came to daily routines, timing was everything. The hottest hours of the day, usually from late morning to mid-afternoon, were reserved for rest. The siesta, a tradition often associated with southern Europe, was alive and well here long before it had a name. Labour started early before sunrise if possible. By mid-morning tasks were winding down, markets closed, workshops fell quiet, courtyards emptied. Inside, people lay on floor cushions or rolled mats, sometimes lightly dampened to offer a bit of evaporative cooling as they napped. But sleeping wasn't confined to the bedroom. Bedrooms, as it happens, were often the hottest places in a Persian house, enclosed small and hard to ventilate during the day. So people slept where the air moved best. In the tailor under the windcatcher, near the house, or best of all on the roof. That's right. Roof sleeping was a Persian tradition that continues in some places even today. When night falls, families climb ladders or stone steps to flat roofs, lined with rugs and cushions. Up there the breeze flows freely. The stars sprawl overhead, The heat trapped in the earth begins to lift, and for the first time all day the air feels truly clean. But we'll get to that in a later section. For now, you walk through the inner rooms of the house, noticing little things. Walls painted pale to reflect heat. Doorways lined with thick cotton curtains, not just for privacy, but to catch dust and sun. Small niches carved into the thick walls where people stored water, pickled vegetables, or oil lamps. Everything had a place, and that place was determined, at least in part, by how hot it got in there. Here's something quirky in some homes. Floors were covered in tightly woven reed mats soaked in cool water. Walking barefoot over them sent tiny shivers up your legs. They weren't common, more of a luxury, but they hint at the lengths people went to keep cool, especially during feasts, weddings, or religious gatherings, when multiple people crowded into the same room. And scent mattered too. Aromatics weren't just about smelling nice. They were believed to have cooling properties physically, mentally, even spiritually. Burned herbs like mint, lavender, and frankincense filled the air in wealthier homes. Rosewater was sprinkled on floors or added to chilled drinks. Some hosts even placed scented ice cubes in front of breezeways, turning the air fragrant as it flowed. You pause in a small room off to the side. It's darker here. The walls are lined with shells, baskets of dried herbs, bundles of cotton stone pots filled with oil. A woman sits cross-legged, stirring a shallow bowl of yogurt with crushed mint and shaved cucumber. She nods toward you, then gestures to the spoon. You take a bite. And immediately the cooling spreads not just on your tongue, but in your sinuses, in your chest. This isn't just food. It's architecture for your insides. Meals too followed the rhythm of the climate. Breakfasts were light, maybe flatbread and cheese. Lunch, when it happened early, was followed by sleep. Dinner was the main event, held just after sunset. Chilled fruits, yogurt stews, drinks laced with vinegar and mint, and always eaten slowly with long pauses as if the food were part of the evening wind. One of the cleverest practices, seasonal swapping. In cooler months, people moved back into the inner rooms, shutting off breezeways, hanging thick cloth over openings to trap warmth. But in summer, they opened the house up, turned it inside out. The parts of the house you'd expect to avoid became the favourite spots. The hallway with the best draft, the corner with the smoothest stone, the part of the courtyard where the shadow hit first. It was like the house had moods, seasons, personalities. You walk outside again into the edge of the courtyard and feel the sun shifting. It's not quite as sharp now. Maybe an hour has passed, maybe more. Time bends in places like this. But what you do know is this: you're still standing. Still cool. Still learning. The Persians didn't fight the heat with noise and machinery. They worked with it, understood it, built around it, and now you're part of it too. Dressed right, walking, slow-shaded, quiet, and less a visitor than a student of the desert. You close your eyes and listen. Wind in the vines, water in the basin, and somewhere just above the rooftops a breeze waiting to fall. By late afternoon the sun is no longer a white-hot spear, it's turning golden now, stretching shadows long across the clay rooftops of the city. The air's lost its bite, though the streets below still shimmer faintly with heat. From the roof you watch the light soften. Everything feels slower, quieter, and you realise something: the city is preparing for its second act, and so are you. Up here, above the courtyards and courtyards within courtyards, the rooftop becomes more than just a place, it becomes an experience. A philosophy. It's where architecture meets astronomy, where heat meets wind, and where families, neighbours, even entire communities reshape their daily lives to follow the temperature's lead. The roof is flat, of course it is. In Persian cities like Yazd or Kerman, homes were built with flat roofs, not just for convenience but for survival. The entire building was oriented to make the rooftop a nighttime escape. During the day, the inside of the house may shelter you, but by evening the roof becomes your sanctuary. You climb the stairs slowly, feet tracing steps worn smooth, by centuries of similar footsteps. A soft breeze greets you at the top. No walls, no ceiling, just the open sky. And air that finally feels like it belongs on your skin again. From here, the city spreads in muted browns and soft curves, domes and towers rising like waves in a sea of adobe. And across nearly every rooftop you see movement. People rolling out carpets, hanging lightweight mosquito nets, setting out clay cups filled with cool water wrapped in damp cloth. The rooftop is transforming into a village above the village. You lay down your own mat, woven reed, soft and worn, and smooth it flat. You add a pillow stuffed with cotton stitched in geometric patterns. A jug of water sits nearby, heavy with condensation. As you settle into place, your body sighs. Your shoulders sink, and it hits you this isn't an emergency escape from the heat. This is a nightly ritual. Sleeping on the roof was a central part of ancient Persian life. Not a backup plan, not a luxury, a tradition. From the richest nobleman to the humblest farmer, everyone at some point in the year lived under the stars. Summer was simply too relentless for anything else. Roofs weren't just flat because it was easier to build that way, they were flat because people needed the sky. And up here they found more than coolness. They found quiet. You lie back, gazing up at the sky. It's no longer blinding, it's deepening. Indigo brushing away gold. The first stars begin to wink into view. You listen to the gentle rustle of fabric as a neighbour nearby adjusts a canopy of linen stretched across 4 poles, homemade shade for tomorrow's sunrise. Elsewhere, a family shares fruit melons, figs, cucumbers sliced thin and soaked in salt water. Not just snacks, but cooling food. Meals on rooftops were often light, hydrating and slow. You sip from your jug. The water is faintly chilled thanks to the damp cloth. It tastes like patience. Historians believe this rooftop culture dates back thousands of years, possibly even to the earliest urban settlements in the region. The choice to sleep on the roof wasn't just practical, it was strategic. Air moves more freely above ground. Heat rises and dissipates, and the body exposed to the open sky releases its own warmth more easily. But there was more to it than physics. Rooftops were social spaces too. Extended families would sleep in clusters, grandparents telling stories, parents whispering about the harvest, children falling asleep to the sound of laughter and far-off crickets. Young couples might sneak glances across adjoining roofs. Old men would trace constellations and argue about the changing winds. And in wealthier homes, the rooftops might feature low stone benches or even shallow footbaths carved into the plaster. Tiny basins filled each evening so you could soak your ankles while watching the moon rise. It sounds extravagant, but it wasn't. It was practical, thoughtful, gentle. You rise to your elbows and scan the horizon. You see domes with latticed tops, windcatchers tall and silent, small fires being lit for tea. A woman's voice calls out to a child in another courtyard. A dog barks once then falls quiet. The city is shifting, cooling, not asleep yet but resting. And here's a curious detail in some communities. Rooftop life became so ingrained that entire routines were built around it. Furniture was light and foldable. Bedding was brought up nightly and stored again before dawn. Some rooftops even had tiny enclosed closets just big enough to store mats, cushions and a lantern. The roof wasn't just a roof. It was a seasonal bedroom reassembled every day with quiet purpose. Not all cities had this luxury, of course. In coastal regions where humidity hung thick, the roof could feel stifling. In mountainous areas, summer nights dipped too cold. But on the arid central plateau where the heat was dry and the stars sharp, the rooftop was the crown of the home. You stretch out fully now, arms behind your head. The breeze moves over you, lifting the edge of your tunic. The stones beneath you, still warm from the day, release their heat slowly like a sigh. You don't need a blanket, not yet. Above the stars begin to multiply. There is no light pollution here. No hum of air conditioners, no flashing streetlights, just sky, deep and vast. A reminder that the earth may be harsh, but the heavens are always watching. And it makes sense now. The architecture of ancient Persia wasn't confined to the walls and domes. It rose into the air, spilled out into the night, climbed the stairs to meet the stars. It built a life on the roof, not just for necessity, but for joy. You listen to the wind move through the vines, the rustle of linen curtains, the sigh of sleeping neighbours, and you breathe. Because here in the high places of the city, coolness isn't found, it's earned. The sun has finally slipped beneath the desert horizon, its rage retreating into the soil, leaving only golden afterglow smeared across the rooftops like the memory of fire. In the heart of the city, the heat's grip begins to loosen. You feel it first on your skin, a subtle lift like someone opened a window in your chest. The day's oppression is over. Now comes the second life of the city, the one that doesn't fight the sun, the one that simply waits it out. You rise slowly from the rooftop mat muscles, sighing with relief. The rooftop is still warm, but the wind has returned an honest, steady breeze that doesn't scorch your cheeks anymore. It carries new smells, now grilled eggplant, fresh bread, hints of crushed mint. Somewhere below, laughter rises from a courtyard. In ancient Persia, the day's true rhythm begins after the sun has surrendered. You descend the stairs, feet landing gently on sun-warmed stone. The home's interior feels cooler than before, as if the walls themselves are exhaling. In the courtyard, oil lamps flicker to life, their light gold and trembling. Shadows stretch long across the tiles, curling around the fountain and creeping up the plaster walls. You pass the family's matriarch, laying a folded cloth across the house, a simple ritual, but one meant to keep the water cool through the night and the room even cooler. Outside, the alleyways pulse with new life. People appear one by one like stars blinking into existence. Doors open. Wooden shutters creak. Clay jars are set outside. Night markets stir from their slumber. You step into the flow, joining others in the narrow street now scented with spice stone and something sweet dates soaked in vinegar and honey. This isn't a rush. There's no urgency in Persian night, only rhythm, a gentle return to movement. Everything here was built to serve this moment when the heat finally lifts and the people come back out to claim their world again. You follow the curve of the alley, passing under a carved wooden beam that catches the moonlight like silver. Lanterns hang from door frames, swaying slightly in the breeze. Their soft glow turns clay walls gold, makes shadows dance like whispers. In a nearby square, children chase one another barefoot, their shrieks echoing softly between buildings, bouncing from dome to dome. You pause near a vendor seated cross-legged beside a brazier. He nods, gestures to a tray of faluda, an icy tangle of starch noodles soaked in rosewater, and lemon half melted from the walkover. You take a shallow clay bowl from his hand, and the cold hits your tongue like a revelation. Sweet, tart, shocking. Made with ice stored in a yakchol, all the way from last winter, dragged out for nights like this. You close your eyes and let it dissolve on your tongue. Food vendors weren't just cooks in the Persian night. They were performers, craftsmen, local celebrities. Their recipes passed down through generations didn't just nourish, they refreshed, rehydrated, restored. You see it now, how the night is built around not just eating, but cooling. Watermelon slices soaked in sour vinegar. Bowls of yogurt whipped with mint and cucumber. Bread dipped in icy dew. All of it designed to lower your inner fire, to remind your blood it no longer needs to boil. You wander deeper into the bazaar. Unlike the frantic markets of daylight, the night bazaar is slower, more intimate. Lamps hang low, illuminating carpets laid out like paintings. Vendors sit behind baskets of dried figs, rock, salt-pickled garlic, all preserved to withstand the day's brutal heat and blossom at night. A man offers you a cup clay cool to the touch, filled with sharbat akak shirin, an old-school drink made with sweet earth herbs and water cooled beneath stone. You sip it cautiously. It tastes like the desert would if it ever learned how to sing. You walk past a fountain in the centre of the square, its water now catching moonlight shimmering like liquid silver. Around it, older men sit cross-legged playing backgammon, quietly sipping tea from small glass cups thick with sugar and attitude. You linger near the edge, not to interrupt, just to absorb. This is where the city's heart beats slow, steady, undeterred. Above you, windcatchers stand still now, not because they've failed, but because their job is mostly done. They've spent the day catching air, moving heat upward and away. And now, the night does the rest. Here's a detail you might not expect. Even the architecture sounds different at night. The echo off domes is sharper. Footsteps travel farther. Whispers in alleyways can sound like conversations across a room. And yes, builders knew this. Some historians argue that elements of Persian design intentionally enhanced night acoustics. Courtyards built to amplify storytelling. Domes that magnified music. Roofs that turned small family songs into lullabies carried across the city. And those stories, they flow at night. You find a small gathering near the edge of the market. A storyteller perched on a low platform, spinning a tale of lovers who communicated with hidden notes, dropped down a qanat tunnel. Children listen, eyes wide. Adults sip tea, pretending not to listen but hanging on every word. This is how night works in ancient Persia. The heat has taken all day to leave, and now that it's gone, the people come out like roots after rain. They fill every corner, every rooftop, every bench and step and ledge. The architecture is no longer just stone, it's a stage, a framework, a home for everything that can't survive under direct sunlight. You sip the last of your sharbat now, just cool water at the bottom of a clay cup. Around you, the city glows dimly, quietly, and perfectly alive. And as you begin your walk back to the house, the breeze pressing gently against your back, you understand something fundamental. This wasn't accidental. The entire city was built around the fact that no one can control the sun. So instead, the Persians controlled everything else. The air, the stone, the timing, the texture, the tone. They didn't just survive heat, they choreographed it. And now as the moonlight bathes the dome above your courtyard and you return to your rooftop mat still slightly warm from earlier, you close your eyes not just with relief, but with respect. Because cooling down isn't just about temperature. Sometimes it's about understanding your environment deeply enough to live with it gracefully, silently and beautifully. The sky above you has turned to velvet. That particular deep, bottomless shade of blue that only appears when the day is gone completely, and the night has settled like a blanket drawn up to your chin. You're lying on a rooftop in ancient Persia, flat, warm, familiar, and the world feels hushed in a way that has nothing to do with silence. It's a stillness crafted by centuries of practice. Above the stars, spill across the heavens a language you can't read, but feel like you could learn given time. The moon just past full hangs low over the distant hills, casting everything in soft silver. Rooftops shimmer. Windcatchers rise like statues, unmoving but all-powerful. The wind hums between them, flowing slowly from tower to courtyard and back again. You pull your linen wrap up to your chest, not because you're cold exactly, but because something in the air has shifted. After a day of surviving heat, your skin finally understands rest. The city does too. Persians didn't just endure the desert, they danced with it. And this moment, sleeping on the roof under the stars, was part of that dance. It wasn't a backup plan. It wasn't rustic discomfort. It was the culmination of 1,000 details working in harmony, thick walls, storing the night-chill floors, radiating the last of the sun's memory. Breezeways calibrated to your pulse rooftops, designed for dreams. You look to your left. A few rooftops away, a woman lays out a second mat beside her own. Her husband arrives moments later carrying 2 shallow clay bowls and a bundle wrapped in cotton. dinner, late quiet, perfect. They sit cross-legged and eat slowly, faces lit by the amber flicker of a small oil lamp tucked in the corner. No screens, no music, just the breeze and the crunch of cucumber. You look right. A teenage boy reclines beside a large ceramic jar. He pours himself a cup of water carefully, reverently. The jug has been swaddled in a damp cloth all evening. Thanks to evaporation, the water inside is cool. Not cool by accident, cool by design. You watch him drink slowly like he's doing something sacred, and in a way he is. This is what the roof was made for. In modern terms, the rooftop is dead space, a place for AC units, forgotten laundry lines, maybe a chair or two. But in ancient Persia, the rooftop was a central living space. It was seasonal architecture at its finest, a place of shade by day, of cool sleep by night. Homes were designed with rooftop access in mind, easy staircases, storage alcoves, raised parapets for safety. Some even had shallow channels carved into the floor to catch the morning dew. And yes, there was dew. You sit up and run your fingers along the edge of your mat. The stone is no longer bone dry. It's gathering a faint sheen of moisture, just enough to wet your fingertips. A miracle in this dry world, and yet not a miracle at all. The Persians knew this would happen. They counted on it. Dew was nature's gift for enduring the day. You lie back down. In wealthier homes, the rooftops might include small pavilions, light wooden structures draped with linen or reeds, creating private nooks for sleeping or reading. In others, simple frames held up mosquito netting or fabric panels. A family might spend the entire night up here, talking, eating, dozing, watching the stars. Infants in cradles, elders on low cushions, everyone drifting at their own pace into sleep. And here's a detail that might surprise you: the stars had names. Not just the ones we know from Greek or Arabic astronomy, but local names, family names, village myths. A farmer might point to a particular cluster and call it the shepherd's fire. A grandmother might say that a certain star only appeared once her husband began harvesting barley. These were not abstract lights in the sky. They were part of the story. You glance up again. The stars are so close it feels like you could pluck one down and keep it in your palm. The Milky Way is a river now, a soft spill of light across an otherwise endless sky. You imagine someone 2,000 years ago doing exactly what you're doing now, lying here on this roof, watching these same stars, feeling the same breeze letting go of the heat, the day, the noise. You imagine them smiling. Because they too knew they'd made it through. Another day without collapse. Another evening of cool water and stone. Another chance to lie in perfect silence, wrapped in moonlight and linen, and the promise of sleep. And the wind keeps moving. The badgers, the windcatchers, never stop. Even at night they do their work quietly, drawing warm air upward, releasing it into the sky, making space for the cool to return. No electricity, no whirring motors, just shape and shadow, and the steady hand of physics. Some scholars suggest that the layout of entire neighbourhoods was influenced by rooftop life, that the orientation of streets and staircases was based not on property lines, but on wind direction. That architects didn't just plan for walls and floors, they planned for stars, for airflow, for rest. And now, as your eyes drift shut, your body sinking deeper into the mat, you understand why. Because this peace, this stillness, is the true reward of the day. Not just the relief from heat, but the confirmation that everything around you was built with care. Built not just to last, but to comfort. Not just to shelter, but to restore. You're not lying on a roof, you're lying in a masterpiece. You awaken not all at once, but in fragments like mist peeling slowly from a pond. Your eyes open to a sky still heavy with night, its colour a deep velvet blue tinged with grey at the edges. Overhead the last stars linger, blinking softly as if reluctant to leave. The rooftop is cool beneath your back, damp with a fine layer of dew. A breeze carries the scent of clay dust and sleep. It is not morning yet, not fully, but it's close. That magical in-between when the world remembers it's alive. You shift gently on your mat, limbs slow and heavy, but not tired. Just rested. Rested in the way only a rooftop in ancient Persia can allow, where the breeze has worked all night to carry away your heat, your noise, your everything. You sit up quietly. The rooftop around you is still but no longer entirely asleep. Someone a few roofs away folds up a linen sheet. Another neighbour yawns, stretches, then pours water from a jug into a copper basin. These are not chores, they're rituals, movements learned by heart. The city does not snap awake at stretches. The wind has changed slightly. No longer warm from the sun's memory, it now carries the freshness of pre-dawn. You can smell the cold in it. The rooftops shimmer faintly. Stone surfaces glisten where dew has gathered. You run your hand along the edge of your mat. Wet. Cool. The kind of cool that sinks through your fingertips and reminds your whole body what balance feels like. This is dew season, those precious pre-dawn hours when even the desert lets go. The Persians revered it. Dew was collected in small bowls by those who rose early enough. It wasn't just a scientific curiosity, it was a gift. It proved that even in the driest places, softness could be coaxed from the air. You rise slowly, wrapping your shawl around your shoulders. The city below is quiet, but you can hear it breathing. A donkey brays far off. A rooster calls once tentative. Somewhere a wooden gate creaks open. Morning is still folding itself open. You descend the stairs back into the courtyard, careful with your steps, careful with the moment. The courtyard is cool now, wrapped in shadow. The small house, the shallow pool in its centre, has not yet caught the sun, and its water is still. A clay cup waits beside it, covered in linen to keep the nights chill. You pour yourself a drink and the water tastes like sky. Cold, pure, unreasonably refreshing. You sip slowly, standing barefoot on the damp stone, watching the faintest hints of light stretch across the top of the walls. Not everyone is awake yet, but you are, and it feels like a secret. Then comes the sound, faint at first, like a low hum. The morning call to prayer begins. It rises gently from a nearby minaret, not shouted, not loud, but soft, as if whispered into the city's ear. The rooftops listen. The courtyards listen. Even the wind seems to hush. The prayer weaves into the air like thread into cloth. You don't need to understand the words. You understand the feeling, that something sacred has arrived with the dawn. After a time you step back into the house. The floors are cool. The air smells of rosewater and sleep. In the corner, a folded pile of rooftop bedding waits to be returned to its niche. You take your time, folding slowly, almost ceremonially. The rooftop will be empty soon. The sun will rise, and the city will transform again, stretching, bustling, sweating, planning. But first, restoration. You carry the mat down to a quiet room off the courtyard. It's darker here, lit only by a single ray of dawn that slips through a high window. You place the mat carefully beside a low wooden bench, then reach for a jug of warm water. You pour it into a clay basin and rinse your face, neck, arms. It's not about cleaning, it's about awakening gently, bringing your body fully into the new day. And then you hear it, another morning ritual beginning. The neighbourhood hammam is open. You step outside again, wrapping your shawl more tightly. The streets are still mostly empty, save for a few early risers walking with deliberate slowness. You follow the curve of a narrow alley until the bathhouse comes into view. Its domed roof is already steaming slightly at the edges. You know what waits inside: warmth, steam, silence. A place where the body can remember itself fully. You slip through the door. Inside, the air shifts instantly. Warm, fragrant, humid. A mixture of rose thyme, mint and stone. The light inside is dim, filtered through stained glass and steam, turning the room into something between a dream and a sanctuary. You sit in the changing room, letting your body adjust, sipping a small glass of dew handed to you by the attendant cool yogurt drink with a dash of dried mint. Then barefoot you enter the garmkhane, the hot room. It's round, of course. All true hammams are. The heat is not blasting or aggressive. It's all-encompassing, like a warm hand pressed gently across your shoulders. You settle against a smooth wall, watching steam curl from the floor. Others are here too, an old man humming to himself as he scrubs his knees. 2 boys laughing quietly while filling buckets. A woman pouring hot water over her hands, letting it drip like honey onto the tiles. You bathe slowly. Rinse your hair. Scrub your arms with a soft cloth. Breathe deeply. You feel your pores open like flowers. The heat pulls out everything the rooftop cooled. Every ache, every tightness, every tension. Gone. Dripped into the drain along with the water. Afterward you step into the sabine, the cool chamber. The air hits your skin like the first sip of morning water. You wrap yourself in linen, sit on a low stool and sip a cup of cool infusion made with lavender and lemon. Outside the city is stirring. The rooftops are empty again. Mats rolled jugs covered windcatchers standing ready. The sun is climbing. But so are you. You step out into the street once more refreshed, rewoven. You carry with you the silence of the stars, the strength of stone, the breath of wind. A new day begins, but its foundation was laid last night on a rooftop beneath the sky. The sun has returned, but it's no longer an enemy. Now with your body cooled, your mind cleared by the hammam steam, and your skin still kissed by that morning dew, you meet the heat like an old companion, annoying, perhaps, but familiar. You walk slowly through the narrow streets of the city, already humming with the early trade and cautious movement. The stone underfoot has not yet burned. The air, while warming, still carries hints of the freshness that lived on the rooftops only an hour ago. Vendors are setting up their stalls, laying out goods with methodical grace. Cloth merchants shake out bolts of cotton dyed in pomegranate peel and indigo. Spice sellers open jars of crushed rose petals, cardamom and turmeric. A baker slides round loaves into a clay oven, the fire inside only now waking up. You smell sesame smoke and salt. You pause at the edge of a shaded square. Here the architecture changes slightly, not in structure but in purpose. This is the part of the city where heat was expected to linger longer, so it's built accordingly. Awnings stretch across the passageways like sails straining against the light. Walls are painted in pale yellows and off-whites, designed to reflect rather than absorb. Water basins are larger here sometimes, with low fountains designed not for decoration but for air cooling through gentle evaporation. You step into one such shaded corridor. It's quiet, darker, with only slivers of sunlight slicing through small wooden slats in the walls above. The temperature drops instantly. It's a design you now recognise, not a mistake, not a luxury, but an intentional manipulation of space and airflow. The Persians built their cities the way a musician composes a symphony, contrasting volume with silence heat, with shade dryness, with the surprise of water. As you walk, your eye catches on a detail carved into the wall, a simple inscription, perhaps a prayer, perhaps poetry, maybe just a name. The lettering is delicate, almost floral, not because it needed to be, but because even the smallest spaces were worthy of beauty. A man sitting cross-legged on a low stool offers you a glass of sharbat-infused water with basil seeds, lime and sweetened pomegranate. You accept. The drink is cool, stored in a clay jug buried waist-deep in the ground for just such a moment. You sip slowly, savouring the way the sweetness spreads across your tongue like music. Every part of this moment has been choreographed for your comfort, yes, but also for your awareness. This is what it means to live with the land instead of against it. You turn the corner and come face to face with another marvel of Persian, cooling the underground chamber. Known as sardabs, these basements weren't just storage, they were sanctuaries. Dug deep beneath the house, lined with thick plaster, and often connected directly to a windcatcher shaft. They were the coolest rooms in the building. Many families ate their lunch here during the heat of the day, reclining on rugs in semi-darkness while the outside world blazed. You descend a small flight of stairs into one now. The light dims, the temperature drops by at least 10 degrees. The air smells of stone and cumin, and something older, preserved lemons maybe, or clay pots soaked in cool water. A family sits on cushions in the corner sharing bread and cheese, and a dish of Master Kiar yogurt with mint and cucumber bright and biting. They invite you to sit and you do. The walls curve gently overhead. There's no sound but quiet conversation and the click of plates and the occasional drip from a cooling jar. No rush, no fire, just stillness shared. It's easy to see how these spaces became more than physical relief. They became cultural anchors. Weddings were planned here, disputes were settled here, children napped while elders told stories. Even politics flowed more smoothly when everyone was lying flat-cooled, full of bread and surrounded by silence. Some historians believe sardabs influenced Persian metaphors for the mind, that to be calm was to be underground, to keep one's thoughts cool. Others argue these spaces weren't just practical, they were psychological, helping people survive not just physically, but emotionally in a place where the outside world often scorched everything it touched. And it worked. You lie back, propped against a bolster, eyes tracing the gentle pattern painted onto the ceiling, faded vines and birds. No one's in a hurry. No one is bracing against the day, because they've already done the work. The city itself has done the work. Cooling is not a fight here, it's an agreement. Eventually you rise again and climb back into the sunlight. The difference is stark. You blink against the light. Your skin tightens, but it's no longer unbearable. You know where to go now, where to rest, where to refill your clay cup, and who will hand you a folded piece of melon wrapped in a vine leaf to soothe your throat. You've learned the map not drawn with ink, but with air. Because in ancient Persia, every home, every courtyard, every alley, bath rooftop and basement was part of that map. A system, a quiet revolution in design, a philosophy of coolness that stretched not only into space, but into time, passed from generation to generation, whispered into plaster, stitched into rugs, frozen into the memory of wind and brick, and now with the city fully awake, with people moving slowly but surely toward the peak of the sun's reign, you understand the rules. You do not resist the heat, you work around it. You rise early, you move slow, you eat light, you rest well. You let the buildings shelter you. The stone teach you the air, remind you that life doesn't have to be hurried to be full. And when the sun reaches its height again, when the light turns white and the shadows vanish, you'll be ready. You'll have a room below ground, a jug wrapped in cloth, a rooftop mat waiting for dusk, and a body that trusts the systems built to carry it through. Because in this city, even the hottest day ends in relief. The sun is now blazing at its peak. It hangs high, unmoving, pouring its fire down onto the city like a relentless drumbeat. The streets are nearly empty. Market stalls have been shuttered, their fabric awnings drooping in surrender. Stray cats curl into the narrowest strips of shadow tails twitching. And from your shaded place in the courtyard, you begin to understand that this moment of enforced stillness is just as intentional as any festival or feast. You've returned to the home, back from the hammam, back from your early morning walk through air that was briefly forgiving. The walk was slow and the world soft, but now everything is retreating. The heat has won this round, and so the city responds in the only way it knows how, by pausing. Inside the home is dim. Not dark, but dimmed by intention. Windows are narrow and placed high on the walls, allowing light in without permitting the full weight of the sun. Curtains made from tightly woven cotton or linen are dampened slightly and pulled tight across openings, their surfaces now acting as gentle evaporative coolers. You move slowly, not lazily, purposefully. There is a rhythm to the day now that feels sacred, like the city itself has taken a deep breath and is holding it. You stretch out again on your mat near the central courtyard. The tiles here are smooth and faintly cool. You trace one with your fingertips, feeling the heat slowly release upward, not as attack, but as memory. This is not the suffocating heat you fear. It's the gentle heat of tradition. And overhead the windcatcher stands still, not because it has failed, but because its work is done for now. It has guided the air through the house all morning, cooled the walls and breathed through the courtyards. Now it simply holds the space, like a watchman on pause. A woman steps lightly into the courtyard. She carries a shallow bowl filled with yogurt, slices of cucumber and dried mint. Mastokia, a cooling dish passed down through centuries, not just for flavour, but for function. She places it beside a pitcher of water, its clay body wrapped in wet cloth. These aren't refreshments, they're part of the architecture. Everything here participates in the task of making life bearable. You eat slowly, spoon by spoon. The yogurt is cold, the mint sharp, the cucumber crisp. Your mouth resets. Your body thanks you. There is no need for noise, no space for distraction. This is your task now, to eat with reverence and rest with intention. Afterward you recline against a cushion, and your mind drifts, not quite dreaming, not fully awake. This is the Pish Sahur hour, the time just before the midday prayer, when the city folds itself inward like a paper fan, each crease, precise, each fold meaningful. And it's in this stillness that you begin to notice details you missed before. Tiny watermarks where dew evaporated from stone. A shadow moving slowly across the wall drawn by the sun's careful hand. The faint crackle of bread crust cooling in the kitchen. Even the scent of the home shifts now from morning herbs and steam to the warm notes of baked earth and cumin, the residue of 1,000 cooked meals. You wander mentally, imagining the hidden spaces inside these homes. Tiny side rooms for napping shaded niches, where old women keep pickled lemons, small stairways leading to sardabs you've yet to visit. These underground basements built not to hide from the world, but to preserve what the world couldn't handle at noon: cold jars, preserved fruits, silence. Some scholars say sardabs were the brain of the house, a place for reflection, for calculation, for decision, where the patriarch retreated in thought or where secrets were kept. Others say they were just practical storage spaces with thick walls and cold floors. But standing here, listening to the hush around you, you suspect both are true. You sip your water. The jug still slightly damp offers you liquid that is cooler than anything outside. This is not coincidence. It is physics married to patience. The clay breathes, the water chills, and your pulse slows. You close your eyes, and in that moment the city seems to vanish. You're no longer aware of the walls or the sun. All you hear is the breeze brushing against linen. All you feel is the earth beneath you. All you know is that you are exactly where you should be. Even the cats are asleep now, their bodies sprawled across mosaic tiles, stretched out in identical poses of surrender. You remember something the bathhouse attendant told you earlier. The city isn't built to escape the heat. It's built to honour it. And suddenly that makes sense. The walls, the floors, the courtyards, the rooftops, the fountains, none of them are trying to defeat the sun. They're making room for it. They're negotiating, hosting it for part of the day, dismissing it during others. It's not war, it's conversation. You breathe, you don't move. A fan made of date palm fibres creaks gently in the corner, turned by hand. A child hums a song under their breath notes, barely rising above the stone. You've heard of thermal comfort in modern terms: temperature ranges, humidity levels, airflow metrics. But this is something different. This is thermal intimacy. You're not just comfortable. You're in relationship with the heat. You know when to rise, when to rest, when to eat something salted and when to chew something sweet. You know which stone to lie on and which one to avoid. You know where the air will flow, not because someone told you, but because the building showed you. The sun creeps forward across the courtyard. It touches your mat. You do not resist. You rise, fold it, and move a few steps deeper into the shade, because here every movement matters, and nothing is done without purpose. The afternoon stretches out like a cat in the sun, still warm and unwilling to move. The city too stretches, not in motion, but in patience. This is the hour when everything must pause, must surrender to the unrelenting glow overhead. But even in the surrender, there's purpose. In ancient Persia, heat didn't mean defeat, it meant choreography. And now you're part of the dance. You've spent the early part of the day in shade and silence in cool rooms carved from brick and breath. But now, as the sunlight begins to slide from white-hot to golden, the rooftop begins to call again. There's work to be done. Not hard labour, but gentle preparation. You gather your mat stored indoors after the morning's rest. You refill your clay jug with water drawn from the underground cistern, where it has sat all day in darkness, shielded from the sun, wrapped in wet linen to keep it chilled. You carry both carefully up the steps, one slow footfall at a time, listening to the creak of the stairwell, the hum of wind passing through the narrow vents. At the top, the rooftop is bare just as you left it. A clean canvas waiting to be set again for the rituals of the evening. The stone beneath your feet radiates the memory of the sun, but it's beginning to cool, its sharpness fading into warmth. You unroll the mat. It lands with a quiet whoosh, the edges settling into familiar places like muscle memory. You brush your hand across the surface, checking for grit, adjusting its position by inches to align it with the breeze. Orientation matters, every rooftop sleeper knows this. The wind comes best from the northwest tonight, so your head must point south, your feet toward the dome of the sky. You set the jug beside the mat in the shadow of the parapet wall. This way it won't heat too quickly. You dip a corner of your shawl into the jug, wring it out and lay it over your shoulders. Instant relief. The breeze pulls the moisture from the cloth, taking your surface heat with it. Evaporation is the oldest form of grace. And then, like the start of a song, you hear it, another rooftop coming to life. 2 houses down, a mother and daughter appear. They speak softly as they sweep the roof with a bundled reed broom. Dust curls and scatters. A boy follows them, dragging a pillow nearly his size, which he drops with theatrical flair. Next door, a man arranges bowls of chopped melon, sliced cucumbers, and a pot of Abana pomegranate water. He sets it in a shallow bowl of wet sand to keep it cold. The rooftops bloom again. This is what no one tells you about desert life. It's not all survival. There's beauty here. There's theatre. Rooftop life is not an accident of architecture. It is the stage for the city's second act. You recline on the mat, breathing deeply. The air has shifted again. No longer motionless, it carries tiny eddies that dance across your chest and ankles. You feel it in the folds of your sleeve, the slight tug of cotton. The badger or windcatcher is doing its job even up here, pulling air upward from the rooms below and guiding cooler currents into the home. You remember reading once that windcatchers aren't just passive. Some had internal partitions, veins that directed the airflow in curves and spirals, cooling it more effectively. Others had ceramic bowls at their base filled with water so that the air arriving into the room would pass over liquid before reaching the sleeper. You smile. That kind of detail isn't about extravagance. It's about care, about respect for comfort. And as the air moves around you, you understand this isn't a luxury. It's a lifestyle built around awareness. You rise for a moment and pour a little water into a wide, shallow dish placed at the rooftop's edge. You watch as a small bird flutters down, perches, drinks. Another detail you've come to expect but never take for granted, this rooftop doesn't belong only to humans. Insects, lizards, birds, all of them are welcome here. The city's cooling systems extend beyond walls and rooms. Even animals have places to rest. A cracked bowl under a bench, a clay tile with a patch of shadow, a spot of moss where dew lingers longer than it should. You lie back again. The sky above you is enormous now. The light shifts from gold to amber. Soon it will deepen to violet, and after that blue-black silver, and the stars will return. You've grown to love this part of the day, the hour between surrender and resurgence, when the heat lets go and the rooftops one by one reclaim their purpose. Somewhere nearby a story begins, a woman's voice low and rhythmic, telling a tale of a traveller who crossed the Lut Desert, guided only by a string of shadows. A child giggles at a familiar twist. Another voice joins in, adding correcting remembering. Stories in Persia are never static. They shift and breathe like the air itself. Historians argue whether Persian domestic architecture prioritized form or function, whether windcatchers were symbolic before they were effective, whether rooftops were truly intended for sleep or became so by necessity. But here now, with the sun sliding below the horizon, and the rooftop warming only in memory, the answer doesn't matter. Because this is working. You're not suffering the heat. You're not hiding from it. You're coexisting with it, dancing with it. You stretch your legs. The stone beneath you hums just faintly. The last of the day's warmth radiates upward just enough to kiss your spine before fading completely. And somewhere below the kitchen begins again. A low clink of metal, the shuffle of feet on tile. Someone prepares tea. Strong, sweet, fragrant with cardamom. It will be brought upstairs in a metal tray, cups clinking gently. It will be served under stars on this very roof with conversation and slices of fig cake. This isn't nostalgia. This is now. And as you exhale, eyes softening, chest rising and falling with the breeze, you realise the genius of it all. They didn't cool the desert. They made peace with it. The sun has now fully set, and with it the city's last shimmer of heat begins to bleed away into the dark. The rooftops, once sizzling stones underfoot, have cooled just enough to be walked on barefoot again. You take each step with care, not because of danger, but because it feels wrong to disturb this gentle quiet. There is something sacred about this hour, an intimacy between the wind and the city that only happens after the sun gives up. The sky is a deep bruised blue now, with the final streaks of pink retreating at the horizon. You sit cross-legged on your rooftop mat, a jug of water beside you, wrapped in fresh cloth, and a small plate of leftovers resting on a folded cloth. Eggplant mashed with yogurt and garlic, now room temperature. A few olives, a corner of flatbread, still pliable, still infused with the scent of wood smoke. You eat slowly. It's not a meal, it's a ritual, and easing into the night. The air moves now with more certainty. The breeze is no longer a desperate hope, it's here, constant, slow and cool. The badger or windcatcher behind you hums in its usual language, guiding the wind through the rooms below with practiced grace. You know now how it works, not just mechanically but emotionally. It's part of the house. It knows your rhythm. It knows when to slow the air and when to draw it through like a sigh. Other rooftops begin to flicker with light. Oil lamps placed at corners, their flames protected by small glass globes or clever walls. They don't blaze, they glow. Pools of amber that mark family gatherings and solo meals. From one rooftop you hear the quiet clatter of teacups on a metal tray. From another a burst of laughter, short, restrained, not rowdy, just real. A story is being told. And then comes the tea. Always the tea. Someone in your household brings up the tray, metal balanced, expertly clinking softly as it moves. 3 small glasses, a pot, a bowl of sugar cubes, and a few sprigs of mint tucked beside a wedge of lemon. You pour slowly. The tea is dark, fragrant with cardamom and memory. You sip. The heat of it is surprising at first. After a day spent running from heat, you now welcome it. Because this is a different kind of heat. Controlled, chosen, comforting. And around you the world shifts again. The rooftop transforms into a sky room. The city becomes a bowl of stars. Families having eaten now stretch out under linen cloths or light blankets. Conversations drift. Children curl up beside grandparents. A few rooftops over a man plays a flute, just a few slow notes, nothing elaborate. But it carries. The sound floats, mingles with the wind and disappears into the dark. You lie down, stretching your limbs across the mat. The stone beneath is cool, but not cold. It holds no grudge for the day's heat. The wind catches your sleeves, rustling them softly. You pull the blanket up to your shoulders, your body instinctively adjusting to the balance of warm tea and cool air. This moment, this exact moment, is what the entire day was leading toward. Everything from the pre-dawn silence to the afternoon stillness was a path to this starlit quiet, this rooftop calm, this shared peace above the noise of the world. The stars now blaze fully above you, unchallenged by city light. You can see them clearly. Not just the big ones, but the smaller clusters, the ones that take time to notice. You remember the names given to them by Persian astronomers centuries ago. Some shared with the Greeks, others uniquely local Parvin, Suhail, Zuhal. They weren't just celestial bodies. They were characters, companions, stories. Persian poetry is filled with stars. They were metaphors, navigators, omens. To sleep beneath them was not a luxury, it was a conversation with the cosmos. Even now you feel that. As if some thread spun 1,000 years ago is still winding through your body, connecting you to every sleeper before you who gazed upward in wonder. You listen. The city hums gently below, not with engines or electricity, but with life. The creak of wood, the whisper of cloth, the sighs of tired people settling into sleep. Even the animals sense it. A dog lets out one bark, then nothing more. A donkey brays once in the distance as if to say goodnight. And in this perfect stillness your mind begins to float. You recall the day not in order but in sensations. The bite of mint in the morning drink, the slick coolness of dew on your fingertips, the scent of wet plaster in the hammam, the thump of your steps in the shaded corridor, the taste of Barbary sharbat at sunset. Each moment, each design aimed at the same goal to help you arrive here, on this rooftop, at this moment, completely at ease. Some scholars argue about the origins of these cooling techniques. Was the windcatcher Persian or Babylonian? Did the qanat, the underground aqueduct, originate with the Elamites or the Medes? Does it matter? Because what matters is this: it worked, and it still works. Without wires, without noise, without walls filled with fans and ducts and filters, just stone, wind, water and time, and people, clever, stubborn, poetic people, who learn to build not in spite of their landscape but with it. You pull your blanket higher. The stars above seem to pulse slightly, as if blinking back at you, and now the wind shifts one final time, a longer exhale that cools your face and quiets your thoughts. The last candle is snuffed on the rooftop next door. The tea tray's taken downstairs. You hear the latch click shut. And then only silence. Not empty silence. Full silence. The kind that holds you. The kind that teaches you. You exhale one last time, your breath matching the rhythm of the breeze, and let your eyes fall closed. Above you the stars keep watch. Below you the stone holds steady. Beside you the jug of water rests still cool. And within you every part of the day finds its rightful place. You're not escaping the heat anymore. You are part of the night. The night is deep now, no longer approaching. No longer settling in, but fully arrived, thick and cool and absolute. You lie still on the rooftop mat, swaddled in a light cotton blanket, arms tucked beneath your head, gazing up into the black-blue canopy above. There's not a cloud in the sky, not a whisper of one, just a scatter of stars, quiet and relentless like tiny watchful eyes. Each breath you take feels measured deep and filled with something ancient. You're not just resting anymore, you're part of the night. This rooftop isn't only a place to sleep, it's a threshold. A line drawn between earth and sky body and air yesterday and tomorrow. You begin to sense the weight of it, not heavy but significant. This roof has seen decades of summers, hundreds of heat waves, thousands of star-salted nights. Every tile beneath you has been warmed by sun and cooled by starlight 1,000 times over. It knows how to hold you. It knows how to wait. All around you, rooftops mirror your quiet. The neighborhood is asleep, but not dead. You can feel it breathing. An oil lamp flickers 3 rooftops away, its glow swaying in the wind. A faint rustle of linen comes from the next house over a sleeper turning, or perhaps just adjusting a blanket. A clay bowl is nudged by a nighttime breeze and rolls half an inch before coming to rest. These sounds are not interruptions. They're part of the rhythm. This city breathes in its sleep. The wind moves now with confidence. Not the tentative stirring of evening, but the sure, slow exhalation of a land finally freed from the sun. It smells different at this hour, darker, deeper. You catch notes of damp stone, sunbaked dust, finally loosening, and the faintest memory of crushed herbs left out to dry earlier in the day. You shift slightly, letting the air reach new parts of your body. It brushes your temple, your wrist, your ankle. Not cold, not warm, just right. Perfect in the way only desert wind can be when it's finally allowed to speak without the sun shouting over it. You're not thinking about time anymore. There's no need, no clock, no alarm. The stars will do the telling. You've learned that much. There's Orion low in the sky now. His belt points toward the curve of the rooftop. You remember what someone said earlier today. When Orion is halfway to the west, the night is half gone. And sure enough, your body agrees. You're neither fully awake nor fully asleep. You exist somewhere in the murky middle. A place where dreams sneak in around the edges of waking thought. You blink, slowly. The stars blur. You let them. And just as you begin to drift, the rooftop stirs again, not violently, not urgently, just enough to remind you that the city is still alive. A dog barks once in the distance, then silence again. Not empty silence, filled silence. Like the kind you hear between 2 lines of poetry. The kind that tells you something important just happened, but it doesn't need to be explained. You take another breath, this one deeper. Below you the house sleeps too. Thick walls still radiate faint heat absorbed during the day. The windcatcher continues its work, silently pulling air through chambers you're not occupying tonight, but that doesn't matter. It cools for the sake of continuity, because that's what it does. It doesn't ask where you are, it just flows. You think about that now, the structure beneath you. The architecture that has supported your every movement today. Not flashy, not even modern by most standards, but utterly efficient. The bricks, the plaster, the domes, the underground corridors, all of them built by people who understood their climate not just in numbers but in rhythm. Some scholars insist these homes were marvels of ancient engineering, built according to mathematical principles that would make modern architects weep. Others say the knowledge was intuitive, passed down through generations by way of experience and trial. But it doesn't really matter. The result is the same. It worked. And it still works. The rooftop cools you without electricity. The clay jug keeps your water cold without refrigeration. The wind reaches your skin without needing to be summoned. This isn't resistance, it's cooperation. An agreement between humans and nature, written not in ink but in air. You reach for your jug, now fingers brushing against the damp cloth that still wraps its base. The water inside is cooler than it has any right to be. You pour a bit into your small cup and take a sip. It tastes different at night. Rounder, quieter. As if it too is aware of the hour. You lie back and stare upward again. The Milky Way is visible now, a faint smudge stretching from one end of the sky to the other. You can trace it with your finger if you want. But you don't. You just let it rest there, a ceiling made of distance and light. You wonder if people always appreciated this, the act of sleeping outside under stars with no roof above them except the moving universe. In ancient Persia, it wasn't a novelty. It was a necessity. But even necessity can become ritual, and rituals become sacred. There's a phrase you remember now, Kabe Sare Badja, sleeping under the windcatcher. It wasn't just literal, it meant sleeping well, deeply, without disturbance. You understand why now, not because it's cooler, but because it's simpler. There's nothing here to distract you. No glow from devices, no buzz of machines, no whine of compressed air. Just the honest hush of engineered wind. You think too of how all this has shaped the people who live here. The patience it requires to wait for the evening breeze. The awareness it takes to align your home with the right current. The humility it teaches not to conquer the environment but to befriend it. You've learned more in the last 16 hours than in some entire years of your life, and none of it was taught. It was shown, through brick, through shadow, through the slow curl of wind across your skin. A sudden movement, just a breeze again, slipping over your blanket, making the fabric rise and fall like a tide. You don't flinch. You've come to expect its visits. The rooftop is fully silent now. Even the cats have found their places. The streets below are still. Somewhere the last oil lamp has been snuffed out. You see the final flicker vanish behind a parapet, and that's it. The city has given itself over to the stars. So have you. You breathe in, you breathe out. The movement is so slow now, so even that it's hard to tell where breath ends and breeze begins. The two are in sync. They've made peace, and in that peace you fall. Not quickly, not all at once, but like a grain of sand settling into the perfect curve of a bowl. You don't remember closing your eyes, but the stars are gone, and in their place the dream. Morning has not yet arrived, but the night begins to shift. Not in light, no hint of dawn, yet stains the horizon, but in feel. The breeze changes first. It is no longer the full-bodied sweep of midnight air, but a gentler, cooler version. As if the world is inhaling deeply in preparation for what's to come. And as you lie there, wrapped in the remains of the rooftop's coolness, you sense it too. Your body has softened during the night. Muscles unknotted, thoughts uncoiled. The weight of the day's heat, the urgency to find relief, the endless calculations of shade and air, they're gone. All that remains is the comfort of survival. Not dramatic, not showy, but complete. The rooftop around you is the same. Familiar now in the way a favourite blanket is. You've come to know its texture, its rhythm, its silences. A piece of linen flutters in the breeze. A stray twig rolls a few inches, then stops. From a nearby rooftop, a cough, a quiet, sleepy one echoes, then fades. The city is still asleep, but not for long. You sit up slowly, the blanket slipping from your shoulders. The sky overhead is still dark, but thinner somehow, like the fabric of night is beginning to wear at the seams. You scan the stars. Fewer now. The brightest remain steadfast, but the smaller constellations are retreating, fading, giving way to the coming light. In ancient Persia, this moment was cherished. The hour before dawn held a special place in the day structure, not just spiritually but practically. It was cool, quiet, clean. It was when bakers lit their first fires, when travellers set out, when the air still remembered the night and the earth still forgot the sun. You stand and stretch your movements slow, deliberate. Your feet make no sound on the rooftop stone. You gather your blanket, fold it loosely and place it beside the mat. Then you pour the last of your cool water into the small basin near your sleeping space. You rinse your hands, your face, your neck. The water is startling in its clarity, as if it too has rested all night. You dry your face with a corner of your shawl, breathing deeply. The rooftop breeze has a purpose now. It's moving in a new direction, flowing downward into the courtyards and halls below, preparing the house, flushing out the last remnants of warmth absorbed the day before. You follow its lead. You descend the stairs with care, stepping into the upper hall. It's dim but not dark. A soft greyness has begun to coat the air like dust suspended in silence. Down below in the centre of the house reflects the first blush of dawn, just a shimmer. The water in the pool is still but no longer black. It has taken on the faintest silver hue. You crouch beside it, dipping your fingers in. The temperature has changed, not cold, but no longer warm. This is the pivot. The house knows it. So do you. You walk barefoot through the hallway toward the small inner room where the morning trays are prepared. A woman is already there, standing in front of a low table. She moves without hurry, arranging dried mulberries in a shallow dish, folding flatbread into quarters, placing a kettle on a clay stove filled with glowing coals. She nods at you. You nod back. No words are needed. Breakfast here is light. A bowl of mast-thick yogurt chilled in clay, a drizzle of honey, a single fig sliced into quarters, a few dates. Simple, cooling, designed not to weigh the body down but to greet it softly. You carry your tray to the courtyard and sit beside the pool. The birds have begun now, one by one, then in pairs. Then suddenly the air is filled with chirps, warbles, wings slicing the early air. The sky turns from charcoal to lavender. The rooftops, still empty of movement, glow faintly at the edges. It is almost time to begin again. You finish your meal. The yogurt clings to the sides of the bowl. The honey hardens in golden veins across the ceramic. You wipe your hands with a damp cloth and rise. Today will be hot again. The city knows it. You know it. But you're not afraid of the heat anymore. You have the tools. You have the rhythm. You have the rooftop. You begin the day not with haste but with preparation. The rooftop bedding is folded. The jugs are refilled. The courtyard swept gently with palm broom. The windcatchers' vents checked for dust or birds' nests. The rooms opened briefly to let the cool air fill them before the sun rises fully. And then, like a curtain being drawn across the sky, the light changes. Sunrise. It spills over the parapet walls. It touches the dome of the mosque in the distance. It sends a flare across the water of the courtyard pool. You watch it land on your fingertips, your arm, the edge of your shawl. It is gold, but not cruel, not yet. You return to the rooftop carrying your mat, your jug, your folded blanket. The wind is already slowing. The air has not yet warmed. This is the quiet hour before the heat becomes serious. A window of peace. You set the mat aside and stand in the centre of the rooftop, eyes closed, feeling the first true rays of sun on your face. It feels different this time. You're not flinching from it. You're greeting it. Because now you understand it. You understand what the Persians understood. That the sun is not an enemy. The wind is not random. The earth is not stubborn. Together they are a system. And if you learn to live with them, not against them, they will care for you. They will cool you. They will carry you. They will let you sleep under stars and wake under gold. And so the cycle begins again. The rooftop waits. The mat lies ready. The breeze soft as a prayer returns. The city stirs. Not in noise, but in motion, the kind of gentle habitual movement that emerges only when the air is still forgiving, and the sun has not yet claimed the sky with its full authority. You step lightly across the rooftop, barefoot once again, the stone cool and familiar beneath your feet. There's something grounding about this surface now, like it's remembered you from yesterday, and is welcoming you back into its rhythm. You peer over the parapet wall. The city below stretches like a cat waking from a nap, slow, dignified, unhurried. A cart creaks down a side alley. A rooster calls out once confidently. Someone coughs from a neighbouring rooftop and a curtain is pulled back, revealing a face that looks exactly as you feel, rested, alert, but not rushed. Inside the house, the cool still clings to the walls. You feel it as you descend the stairs and pass through the hallways. The windows remain shuttered, the curtains drawn not in fear of light but in mastery of it. The trick is not to hide from the heat but to schedule its entry. Let the morning sun in when you want it. Keep it out when you must. In the central courtyard, the house reflects the growing light like a mirror cracked with ripples. You run your fingers through it, enjoying the sensation of the water slipping across your skin. There's a clarity to the air now, a sharpness that only exists in this window between first light and full sun. It's a moment of decision, of positioning. Where will you be when the heat arrives? You already know the answer. Today, like yesterday, you'll navigate the house's cooling system with the same grace as those before you. You'll seek out shade not as escape but as residence. You'll open and close doors like adjusting sails. You'll eat small, light, salty meals. You'll listen to the walls and the floors and the fabric of the building. Because by now you've learned this isn't just a home, it's a teacher. And the lesson continues with the sardab, the underground chamber that served you well the day before. It still waits beneath the floor, cool and silent, already prepared. The temperature there hasn't changed much. That's the beauty of it. The walls have thickened with shadow. The air is still. The windcatcher hums above, continuing its tireless work of drawing heat upward, pulling coolness down. You descend into the sardab and sit for a moment. The cool hits you, gently, not like a cold splash, but like the brushing of silk. You inhale, and the air smells of earth and time. There's no rush to leave. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat, taking in the silence. A plate of nuts and dried fruit waits on a low wooden tray. Next to it, a small ceramic cup of rosewater, and crushed ice collected from the yakchal, still preserving the breath of winter in its clay-lined belly. This is a morning retreat, not to escape the coming day, but to meet it properly. You think about the systems working all around you. The qanats, those underground aqueducts that guide fresh water through the desert, defying logic and terrain. The sloped roofs and tall domes that catch the evening wind and disperse it like a balm. The thick, earthen walls that insulate you from both extremes, not cold, not hot, but held in balance. And you realize none of this is accidental. These designs are legacies, whispered from bricklayer to apprentice, drawn in the dust by fingers trained in geometry and intuition, carved into plaster, painted into tile, hidden in every arch and alcove and vent. These were not merely homes, they were ideas made livable. You rise and leave the sardab, returning to the main level. The house is still quiet, but activity pulses in its corners. Someone sweeps the courtyard tiles. A kettle steams gently in the kitchen. Bread dough is being stretched thin, laid across a hot stone in the corner oven, bubbling up into air pockets with a soft hiss. Outside, the sunlight has begun to creep across the walls inch by inch. The shadows draw back like curtains revealing the day. And yet you're not afraid of it anymore. You know how to greet it. You fill your jug with water and soak a piece of linen in the basin. Wrapping it around the jug, you place it in the corner of the room where the breeze will pass over it regularly. This isn't guesswork, it's practice. Learned, observed, refined. The wind begins to rise again. It moves through the city not in gusts but in drafts. From street to alley, from dome to dome, it carries not just air but history. 1,000 hands shaping it over centuries. 1,000 lives depending on its presence. You carry your mat back up to the roof, this time not to sleep but to reflect. The rooftop in daylight is a different place, bright, clear but still serene. You sit near the wall under the growing shadow, cast by a clay pot filled with basil and tarragon. The leaves sway in the breeze, releasing their scent. You crush one gently between your fingers. The smell is sharp, peppery green, and you think again of all you've learned. This city isn't built for power, it's built for peace. Not silence necessarily, but the kind of peace that comes from participation, from alignment. The people who built this world did so with the land not against it. They didn't demand that stone behave like metal. They didn't force wind to turn blades. They asked, how does this place breathe? And then they built homes that inhaled with it. You look out across the skyline, domes and towers, flat rooftops and carved eaves. It all looks so calm from here. But underneath it's pulsing with strategy. The sun rises higher now. It's not oppressive yet, but you can feel its intention. The light becomes harder, the colours more saturated. You know the courtyard will warm soon. You know the rooms will begin to glow. But that's fine. You have cool water. You have shade. You have the memory of last night's wind still tangled in your hair. And you have the knowledge of how to move through the day, not with resistance, but with rhythm. You'll retreat when the heat demands it. You'll rest when the walls tell you to. You'll return to the sardab when the air thickens. And when the sun lowers again, you'll climb this rooftop one more time, spread your mat and look up. Because you know now that every day here is a cycle. Not of struggle, but of grace. A negotiation between heat and human. And somehow against all odds the human wins. Softly, patiently, beautifully. The sun has climbed high now, perched overhead like a watchful overseer, painting every surface with its full brilliance. The shadows are short and sharp. The stone walls, which were cool just hours ago, now radiate heat like open ovens. And yet you're not flustered, not pressed, not caught off guard. You're ready. You've stepped back into the house, into the folds of its ancient choreography. The doors have been adjusted, the curtains wetted and drawn. In the shaded hallways the air still moves. Not with the force of a machine, but with the patience of a people who have known the sun for millennia. You move slowly, deliberately. There's no rushing. Even your breath seems to have slowed. You feel the thick plaster walls with your fingertips. They're warm to the touch, but not burning. Because they don't panic. They absorb. They remember the night and hold on to it for as long as they can. In the courtyard, someone has laid a woven mat under the orange tree. A jug sits beside it, draped in a damp cloth. On a small tray, slices of cucumber mint leaves and chilled rose water. These aren't snacks. They're part of the house's climate strategy. Internal cooling flavour as function. You sit. You press the back of your hand against the jug. It's cold. Not refrigerator cold, desert cold, ancient cold, earned cold. You pour a cup, take a sip. The taste is bright, almost sharp. It reminds you of green things, of living water. You hold the cup in your hands, not drinking yet, just letting the temperature seep into your palms. And overhead, the badgear, the windcatcher, still listens. Its tower hums with the lightest of breezes, drawing hot air upward and away. You can feel it ever so faintly moving across your shoulder. It's not dramatic, not theatrical, but it's there, always there. That soft exchange of breath between building and sky. You close your eyes and imagine how many generations have sat exactly where you sit now, listening to that same wind, cooling themselves in the exact same way. Centuries of people with different names, different clothes, different burdens, but the same sun, the same stone, the same solution. This house is not an invention, it's an inheritance. You stand now, stretching slightly. Your limbs are slower in the heat, but not reluctant. You're not fighting anything, you're flowing with it. You make your way to the southern wing of the house, where a thick-walled room has been kept shut all morning. You unlatch the door, step inside. Instant relief, not the blast of artificial air. Something deeper, more trustworthy. The room is dark, the only light filtering through a decorative wooden screen high above. Dust motes hang motionless in the air. The floor is covered with layered rugs, their fibres warmed by footfall but spared from the sun. You sit again, leaning against the wall, your back pressed to cool plaster. This is not a nap space, it's a listening space, a thinking space. In ancient Persian homes, these chambers were often where midday was endured, not in idleness, but in pause, a break built into the day itself. And as you sit there unmoving, a thought rises. Maybe modern life didn't just forget how to cool homes, it forgot how to cool people. You breathe deeply and the air tastes still of mint, of the soaked curtain, of the cooled water in the jug nearby. There are no fans, no vents, and yet you are comfortable. You begin to hum softly, a melody with no name, just a tone that seems to match the vibration of the house around you. There's something sacred about being able to live like this, to experience architecture not as walls and windows but as conversation. You move through this space not like a guest but like a second voice in a duet, and then the breeze changes. It's subtle, but you feel it. The angle, the flow. The windcatcher has adjusted. Not manually, just naturally. As the outside air shifts, the internal currents realign. What was a faint sweep down the west corridor now becomes a light whisper from the northern shaft. You smile. It's working. It always was. You rise again and head back to the courtyard. The fountain in the centre is still running, not a gushing torrent but a gentle burble. The water arcs through the air like a slow-motion gesture. Birds flutter at its edge, dipping and preening. You dip your fingers in, splash them over your face, your forearms. It's not a full wash, just enough. Enough to remind your skin that relief is never far. Historians still argue about the priority of Persian cooling architecture. Was it designed first for the elite for palaces and mosques? Or was it always intended as a solution for the common citizen, scalable and elegant? You wonder if the distinction even matters. Because here you are in a home neither palace nor hut, cooled, comforted, held. You return to your rooftop briefly, not to sleep this time, just to check. You push open the small door and step onto the tiles. They're hot, yes, but not punishing. The breeze meets you again, stronger now. Afternoon wind born of thermal contrast between desert and mountain. It carries sand sometimes, but today it's clean. You kneel at the edge of the roof and look out. The domes across the city gleam dully in the sun. Their curved tiles scatter light, not reflect it. Another cleverness. Their shapes are not just aesthetic, they reduce surface heat. And underneath them, families rest. This is not a moment of pride exactly. It's a moment of belonging. You're part of a living tradition. And as you stand brushing dust from your knees, you feel gratitude, quiet, deep, ordinary gratitude for clay, for water, for wind. You descend the stairs slowly. The light in the courtyard has shifted. The jug is still cool, the mat still soft. And the city still holds its breath, waiting as always for the night to come back and bless it again. The light is fading. Not rushing away, but slipping the way, water retreats from sand, slow, gentle, full of memory. You sit once more on the rooftop that has become your companion, your teacher, your shelter. The city below is quieting, and so are you. Everything now seems to lean westward, as if the buildings themselves are bowing slightly in farewell to the day. Your mat is already rolled out, waiting for you like an old friend. The jug of water rests beside it, wrapped in cloth that's just a little drier than it was earlier, but still cool enough to protect the temperature within. You press your palm to its side. The clay is cool. Predictably, wonderfully cool. The kind of cool that only comes from long patience, from evaporation, from design, so perfect it no longer feels like design at all. You lie back, hands resting on your stomach, eyes tracing the upper edge of the skyline. From this vantage point, everything is familiar now. The angles of the domes, the slope of the neighbour's parapet, the way one tower always catches the last light and glows like it's been set aflame. Tonight that glow is dimmer. The sun has dipped low enough that the city is no longer resisting its heat. It has simply let go. The rooftop too exhales. A breeze begins. You feel it first on your forehead, then at your ankles, as if the rooftop itself has decided it's time for the next act. This is the hour when everything resets. The rugs are brought up again, pillows laid down, Lanterns lit and meals carried with quiet reverence. The rooftop becomes a sky parlour, a theatre, a haven. Dinner arrives, not loudly, not ceremonially, just a tray carried up by steady hands set down beside you with a nod. The meal is modest and perfect. A dish of rice mixed with sour cherries and slivered almonds. Warm flatbread folded like fabric. Slices of cucumber and yogurt dusted with mint, and dates sweet chewy, each one a tiny piece of the sun in edible form. You eat slowly, letting each bite settle. There's no talking right now. No one needs to speak. The city is full of shared understanding. Everyone knows this time. The golden hour is over and the velvet one has arrived. From another rooftop, the clink of a teapot lid, the sound of tea being poured. You don't see them, but you know they're there, neighbours, friends, strangers, all moving to the same rhythm, all moving toward the quiet. Your own teapot appears not long after. It's simple metal, well used and still steaming. Alongside it, a tiny dish of sugar cubes and 2 small glasses rimmed in gold paint worn thin by decades of use. You pour gently, watching the amber liquid swirl in the glass. It smells of cardamom, of earth, of patience. You sip. It's hot, almost too hot. But you let it sit on your tongue, let it cool the way tea always does by forcing you to slow down. And as you drink, the stars begin to arrive, not all at once. They come slowly, politely, never shouting for attention. First one, then 3, then dozens, then so many you stop trying to count. They scatter themselves across the sky with the casual generosity of someone who knows their value is in their constancy. You lie back again. Your belly is full. Your limbs are loose. The rooftop feels familiar beneath you, like memory made solid. You've spent enough time up here now that the small cracks in the tile, the angle of the parapet wall, the way the wind curls in from the southeast, none of it surprises you. It comforts you. A moth dances near the lantern. A cat leaps from one rooftop to another, its body arched mid-air, then disappearing behind a chimney. Someone laughs softly, and the wind moves again. This breeze is different. It carries the smell of dust and mint, of cooling plaster, of the neighbour's tea. It threads itself through your sleeves, lifts a corner of your blanket, ruffles your hair gently. It doesn't command attention. It earns it. Below the house quiets. You can hear the door to the kitchen close with a padded thump. A spoon is rinsed. Footsteps retreat down a hallway. All things slowing. You understand something now. This rooftop, this moment, it isn't the result of avoidance. It's the result of design. 1,000 decisions about brick thickness, window placement, courtyard, shaped the curve of a stair have led you here. To comfort. To calm. Historians debate the exact origins of rooftop sleeping. Was it necessity, custom, accident? Maybe it was all of them. Maybe it doesn't matter. Because up here under this sky you feel something older than any academic theory. You feel tradition. Not as rules or rituals, but as presence. You are part of something continuous. Something that began long before you and will outlast you. This rooftop is not just architecture, it is ancestry. It is survival refined into art. The stars above are brilliant now. You begin to pick out constellations, but only for a moment. It doesn't matter what they're called. What matters is that they're here, that they always come back. Like the breeze, like the tea, like the quiet. Your body begins to loosen into rest. The blanket is pulled up now, not for cold, but for closure. You tuck your arms beneath it, fingers brushing the mat's edge. The rooftop beneath you feels like it's breathing. You match its pace. The sounds of the city are faint muted, a cartwheel far off, a baby crying once then quieted, a distant bell, but closer the silence holds. It isn't empty, it's full. Full of design, of patience, of people who built lives in harmony with heat, who shaped homes that breathe, who saw sleep not as luxury, but as architecture. You think about the windcatcher above your room, still working, always working, drawing out the last of the warm air, pulling in breath from the sky, cooling the bones of the house one gust at a time, and you smile, because you know this isn't the end. It's the beginning of the next cycle. Tomorrow the sun will rise, the bricks will warm, the water will be poured again, the rugs unrolled, the breeze will return, and you'll be ready. Because now you know how to move through heat with grace, how to lie still and listen, how to trust stone and wind, how to sleep under stars and wake up in a house that remembers who you are. The rooftop is quiet, the stars are steady, and you wrapped in calm drift away. No drama, no urgency, just peace, just breath. Just the slow, soft rhythm of a city built to hold you through the heat, through the night, through the centuries.